What happens when money-hungry Hollywood people want some more money? They make origin movies about characters that don't need origin stories. But maybe this one's different. Maybe this one will be good. Welcome to Dodo's Horrorness, where we talk all things horror. Today we're talking about the Nun. Will Valak come back and scream into some more people's faces and scare us all to death like in the Conjuring 2? Or will it prove once again that when you do an origin story on characters that don't need it, it just falls flat? Let's find out as we get to the Gore versus the Boar. I do talk about the whole movie, so spoilers ahead, so if you've already seen it or don't care, then stick around and let's have some fun. The movie starts with a Gore. You see two nuns in Romania. They're in an abbey and they're going down to the catacombs to retrieve a relic. They don't tell us what it is just yet, but they're talking about it like it's their last hope. They open this gate that's kind of like the gate to hell, and then one of them goes in there and she gets attacked by something. But before she can get dragged away, she hands the key over to the other nun and tells her that she knows what she has to do and that there can't be a vessel for this demon to escape. The other nun does know what she needs to do, and she goes up to the highest point in the tower. And we got some cool imagery here where you see Valak kind of appear in the shadows and things like that. We never see it completely. But the other nun, before she gets got, she decides that she's going to hang herself. So she puts a rope around her neck and then she jumps out the window. We just get a reflection of Valak's face kind of peeking over the window like, damn, you really did that. Later on, we see that there's a delivery guy who we're going to know as Frenchie. And he finds the nun hanging and a bunch of crows are eating her face. It's a pretty strong start for the movie, but let's see if it can continue this streak or if it's going to go downhill. We meet Father Burke and Sister Irene, who are there to see if the abbey can still be considered holy or if it's an unholy place. They meet up with Frenchie and ask him if he could take them over to the abbey. He's like, nah, I don't want to do that. Last time I went, I saw this and that, so I am not going back there anymore. But since he has the hots for Sister Irene, all it takes is for her to say please. He just looks at her and is like, all right, I'll do it. I don't like this scene because he literally just saw a dead body and is having nightmares from it. And he didn't want to go back, but just because a pretty girl says please, like he's just like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have any other choice. They could have done a little bit more with that, like offer him something or made it to where like there's something in it for him rather than just a girl saying please. I do, however, like the location. This abbey is like a big old castle in the middle of the woods and all the shots look really, really good. It's nothing original, but it does look creepy and it does give a great location for a horror movie. Like I said, it's in the middle of nowhere, and not only that makes it creepy, but also the fact that there's like a ton, like thousands of crosses all around, and Frenchie tells them that it's to keep something out of there, which gives it more of a creepy feeling to it. They meet up with the Reverend Mother, who's dressed up all creepy, and she's like, you guys can't talk to the nuns because we're in silent prayer right now, so you guys are gonna have to wait till tomorrow. You guys can stay the night over there and then we'll see ya in the morning. You can definitely tell that it's a trap, but I find it funny that demons go through such trouble to hunt people, because you got Valak, this demon who's pretending to be an old lady and is talking to them about Catholic stuff while at the same time talking about lodging and like you guys can stay here and blah blah blah, and I just find that kind of funny. They tell Frenchie that they are gonna stay there so that he can go back home and to come back a few days later for them. As he's leaving, he sees another nun in the woods and he begins to walk around chasing her. This scene goes for almost 5 minutes and it's just him walking around the woods looking for this nun. And then out of nowhere, you just see her legs in front of him with a cheap jump scare. And then he gets scared and then he begins to run towards the crosses. And once he makes it past the crosses, then this entity stops. And then it can't go any further, leaving Frenchie alone. What I find funny here is that he's supposed to be one of our good guys. And he just kind of sees this and doesn't go back to tell the father or Sister Irene about it. I mean, it was definitely a really scary situation in which I would have not gone back in myself, but he is going to come back a few days later regardless. So it's just kind of weird that he would experience this and just kind of be like, I'll tell them later. Father Burke gives us a quick story about how he performed an exorcism on this young boy one time and that it didn't go successfully as the boy eventually died. Whenever he wakes up the next night, he sees this boy and he begins to chase him outside. He goes into the cemetery part and he gets scared by something and then he falls into an empty casket and then he gets buried alive. Now, normally this would be a really scary scene. The only thing about it is that whenever they zoom out, he's been covered in dirt, so he's buried alive, and then they show the little casket and it says, "Here lies Father Burke." What I find funny about this scene is that Valak the demon once again took its time to make this almost like a prank. Like, I just picture Valak somewhere in a room writing down his plans and being like, oh, this would be funny. And then whenever I bury him, I'm going to put his name on the casket, like kind of planning it out, thinking he's so clever. Sister Irene wakes up and she starts walking around. She sees a bunch of nuns praying, and then whenever she turns around, they all disappear. And then in a mirror, she sees Valak. For the first time in this movie, after like 40 minutes or so, we get our first actual look at Valak's face here. And then she starts to run away, so she goes outside and she begins to hear the bell. Now, earlier in the movie, they did explain that they used to be buried with a string into the casket that was attached to a bell on top of the tombstone, that just in case they buried somebody alive, they could ring that bell and they could come and dig him out. Which is funny because the only reason why I would see them doing this is because it happened a lot. So I guess a lot of people used to be buried alive. It also makes me wonder, on windy days, how terrified were people and how many graves did they dig up by accident thinking that the bell was ringing, but it was just the wind. But she hears the bell ringing, and then she hears Father Burke screaming for help. She's like, I can hear you. And as soon as she gets up, she looks over and there's a super convenient shovel right there. And then the next scene I find real funny because you got Sister Irene, who's probably maybe 130 pounds. And she begins to dig and gets him out in minutes. It doesn't take minutes to dig out a grave. But hey, maybe she's done this before. Maybe she's a professional. I don't know. But she gets him out of there pretty quickly. So Father Burke is here to decide whether this ground is unholy or holy. And he just went through this. And he's like, nah, not enough proof. I'm going to stay some more. Like, get out of there, dude. Like, that would have been enough for me. I would have been like, yep, that's it. Close it down. I'm out. Sister Irene, back in the building, she goes and talks to another nun who gives her the whole backstory on Valak and how the only way to stop it is by getting the relic, which is actually the blood of Christ. Unfortunately for them, it's somewhere that they can't find. They have the key to where it's locked in, but they don't have the location, so they need to find it. In the next 20 minutes or so, we get a bunch of cheap jump scares, and none are really creative. The nuns tell Sister Irene that the evil's getting stronger and that shit's about to get real, and it sure does get real fast. And for a movie called The Nun, there sure is a lot of them. It should have been called Nuns and maybe turned into a sitcom or something like that, and maybe would have been better, just maybe. But feeling that evil presence, they're like, okay, it's about to get real, so what we need to do is go into this room and we need to pray. And they tell Sister Irene, listen, you're gonna pray and you can't stop. No matter what happens, you cannot stop. So they all get on their knees and begin to pray. Now they start hearing noises and then some things start happening, and all the other nuns get blown to the side and smashed against the wall and everything. And Sister Irene can't stop praying. She kind of looks over and sees them all hurt, but she's dedicated. She just sticks to the plan and keeps praying. At one point, I really like this scene because while she's doing that, she's on her knees praying and she knows that she can't stop. You just see that her back gets exposed. And then the asshole Valak, he begins to draw an inverted pentagram on her back, like with scratches. And she's taking it like a champ. You just see the scratches appear on her back. And she's just like, can't stop, won't stop. And she keeps praying. Frenchie finally comes back and he meets up with Father Burke. And they go looking for her. And they finally get to the place where she's at. She finally stops praying and tells them what's going on. And tells them that all the nuns need help. And whenever they're like, what are you talking about? They turn around and all the nuns are gone. And there's just dead bodies everywhere. And they're decomposed. So that means that they were dead from a long time ago. So it's like a really shocking twist here. Because all the nuns have been dead the whole time. I'm being sarcastic. It was not a good twist at all. It was seen from a mile away just because even in the beginning of the movie, they tell you that those two nuns, that one of them that gets dragged away and the other one that hangs herself, they tell us that they're the last ones and that Valak needs a vessel. So we kind of knew from the beginning that there was no more vessels for Valak. So it's kind of implied that everybody's dead. So I don't know why this twist came. It was more for the characters rather than us. But I didn't like this twist at all. But they're already there, so they're like, all right, let's just seal this gate. Let's find the blood of Jesus and let's just help this place out. So they need to find two things. They need to find the gateway to send Valak back. But before they can do that, they need to find the blood of Jesus. Now, nobody's found it before, so it's going to be super hard, right? Now they find it within seconds. Like, they literally walk to this room and they're like, where could it be? And then, like, the Father Burke is like, look at the statues pointing in this direction. So that cliche statue's pointing at something. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's pointing at this. And then in the wall, there's a hole shaped like a cross that fits the key perfectly. And I'm just wondering, like, nobody saw this random hole shaped like a cross and thought it was suspicious and tried to investigate what it was. Either way, they get the blood of Christ. And now they need to find the gateway. So what's the best way to find something that you can't find? Obviously, you got to split up. And while they're split up, they all get a bunch of cheap jump scares once more. and then they all experience something different. But then Sister Irene screams and Frenchie runs to her. He sees a bunch of like nuns with a robe over their head, covered up, and then he goes through them all slowly. And you would think something's gonna happen here, but literally nothing happens. They all just start walking away and they just leave the room for some reason. And then it's left with Sister Irene with the hood in her head, and she's just kind of floating forward with her arms out. She gets turned into like this like half Sister Irene, half Valak character, and she's attacking Frenchie, but she's wearing the blood of Jesus on her neck, and Frenchie kind of breaks it and grabs it with his fingers and smears it over her face, separating Valak and Sister Irene. Sister Irene goes flying into some water, and then Valak grabs Frenchie, and then she like spits a snake out, and it goes into his mouth, and then she like pushes him away. While Sister Irene is in this pool of water, you get this really cool visual that looks really cool. You see Valak floating on top of the water, and then Sister Irene kind of trying to swim, and it looks really cool. Valak begins to choke Sister Irene underwater, trying to drown her, and all he wants is the blood of Christ. That's all he wants, right? So he's trying like, give me that, please give me that. And then she's like, okay, here you go, and she puts it over the water. And then Valak's like, finally, thank you. So he grabs it, and then he's so thankful that he pulls her back out of the water and comes face to face, and he's about to say thank you. But before he can say thank you, asshole Sister Irene, before giving the relic to Valak, she actually bit it and sucked all the Jesus blood into her mouth. And whenever they're face to face, she spits it at Valak. Now it's kind of weird because Valak is holding Sister Irene and she just spit on him, so she's conscious, right? But Valak gets hurt by that and lets go of Sister Irene, and then you just see Valak melting and going back to hell, and then all the water starts to go down, and for some reason now Sister Irene is unconscious, so Frenchie jumps into the water. He literally dives full body into the water, and as soon as he touches her, he stands up and he's like waist level water, so it's kind of a weird transition to where it's super deep, and then just in like half a second later it's to their waist. But Valak is gone, the water's going down, he saves her, he gives her CPR, she comes back, and she's super happy that she got revived and everything's cool, right? In the very last scene, we see Frenchie driving his little car, and then you see the back of his neck, and there's like an upside down cross that appears there, and this is how the movie ends. I don't have a problem with the ending. I think it's okay. Like it's not an amazing ending. It's not a terrible ending. It's just in the middle. So I won't give it a gore or a bore point. It's just kind of like, yeah, sure. The only thing is that with the reverse cross, it's kind of like telling you like, hey, we'll be back. And I kind of wish that they did the Marvel thing where like in big letters at the end of the movie, it's like Valak will return. At the end, the nun finishes with 4 gore points versus 6 bore points, giving us a total of -2 points total. This is my first negative that I get. It's not a horrible movie. Like it's nothing too insulting. It's just kind of like there. You can watch it and maybe have fun with it if you really like jump scares. But if you like the video, subscribe, like, and comment, and let me know what you think. If you like the movie, if you don't, let me know why. And if you want to watch my video for the Nun 2, then hit that bell notification. That way you get notified when it drops.